Hit the lights!
You've discovered the Halfwatt Podcast. We want to educate and entertain by tapping into the most trusted source of new technology, the ones installing and innovating it. You, the tradespeople that build from the ground up. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, veteran contractors, and even some young blood.
Welcome aboard, welcome aboard. Hey, I've made it through Rona. I'm back, I'm in one piece. I didn't die, but it's not recommended. 1 star. I don't really want to do it again. In the studio today is probably my best friend, Eric. Say hi.
Hi.
Eric Holm. It's with a K. Get that right. Not Eric with a C. Eric, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. So Eric is a little bit younger than me. I've known him since he was, I think, 16. No, 17.
18.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think it was 17.
Okay, I don't know.
When did you start up on the hill? Don't lie.
18. It's right after high school.
I thought it was 8. I thought it was 17.
No. It was right after high school.
Liar! Okay, anyway. So I've known him since he was 18. Oh, I'm 17 years older than you. So you're right. You were 18. It has to be.
Don't math at me.
Okay, whatever. So Eric was a high school student we hired up on the hill at OHSU, and he was brought on as a CAD monkey. And
basically,
so
yes.
You've been doing CAD
for a long time.
For how long now?
Oh.
And how old are you today or yesterday?
Yesterday I turned 45.
You're old as shit, man.
I know.
You really are, dude.
My body reminds me every morning. Yeah, I took 2 years of CAD in high school.
All right.
When I was originally hired on at the Hill, they didn't know that I actually did CAD. It never really came up in conversation.
Know that.
No, I was hired on just
because you were a student.
I was a student temp. I was hired on to just file paperwork,
mm-hmm.
answer the phone, like for the bypass, the fire alarm bypass logs in the morning.
Right.
Go over to the computer, set that stuff all up, and I just let it slip one day that I learned.
Also,
2 years of
because
CAD.
when I got there, you were already there.
Mm-hmm.
You were hired before I got.
Yeah, I started September of 1997.
Yeah, so you were there really a year before I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I was there in 98. So, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you were just like already a fixture when I showed up.
Right. So I was kind of the pet.
Yes, I'd say you were the pet.
Of the instrument shop.
Of the EMC. Yeah, because you were working out of the physical plant.
Yeah, I started at the physical plant
yeah.
and then moved over to the EMC
nice.
February, right after I started. And
so the EMC is where we make the steam.
That's the boiler plant.
The boiler room.
All the boiler
with
monkeys.
Jerry. The screaming Mimi. God. Ron still works there. Ron Metz still works there, and I think he has PTSD from it, man, because he's like I was like, how's it going? You know, how was it with Jerry? He's like, ugh. His eyes get real big. But anyway, so I met you while we were working there.
Yeah, so at that point I'd already let it slip that I ran CAD,
mm-hmm.
and Tom, he was the guy that hired me.
Tom Ashford.
Tom Ashford. He says, "Oh, well, I've got a little project for you then." And it was they were having some weird anomaly
mm-hmm.
with the compass on the helicopters.
I remember that.
Land on the helipad
spot too. Yeah.
When the heat trace was on,
mm-hmm.
to try and keep the ice off, their gyro, just their whatever.
The gyro compass would spin.
It would just go nuts. And then they were like, we don't want to land here anymore. You fix your stuff. So it was
this is life flight because we're a level 1
life flight. So Tom sends me out on the helipad with a compass, and I had to do little grid points and then plot them all out on a map of the thing, and I threw it all in CAD, and I don't know, somehow he magically figured out what the problem was.
He was brilliant.
Yeah, he was
freaking brilliant.
Very smart guy.
Yeah, he was. He'd gone to school to be an electronic technologist, I think was the term.
Yeah.
And so he had this, like, innate ability to build circuits, like from his head.
Yeah, he would put stuff together in his head.
He was brilliant.
He wouldn't even write it out on paper.
No.
And he would just build it.
Just build it. I'd come in the instrument shop, and he would, the one in Crowett, and he would be like building something. I'm like, what's that? He goes, okay, well, this guy's got this little thing that spins, and like this will like tell me when I was like, I spent 9 years in the goddamn Navy. I can't do any of this.
Right.
he's like, "Oh, you're interrupting me and stuff. You need to leave so I can finish this. You're like a lot of energy."
Okay, he wasn't that neurotic, but
he's neurotic.
He was very
good.
Very brilliant guy, though.
Oh, unbelievably brilliant. I miss him. I miss him as a work partner because he was my stability and my rock and he didn't know fire when he got kind of thrust into it. He was an instrument shop tech.
Yeah.
And so he had to learn. So he learned what I knew, and I learned what he could teach me. And together we stumble bunny through it.
Right.
But he became the guy who taught me, like, to stop and draw out a circuit and to think about it. And he was the guy I'd call when I was vapor locked on something.
Yeah. And
then he would call me when he was vapor locked on something.
Absolutely.
Between him and Parker, there was nothing we couldn't. Mike Parker, by the way, was a JLE at the time, and then we all became LEAs. And Mike Parker was the pianist and keyboardist for the Hudson Brothers. So if you look up the Hudson Brothers, which was a band, he was in that rock band.
Wild.
And yeah.
I knew he did music stuff, but I never knew the name of the band.
He was in the Hudson Brothers, and he came and played on our piano in our house. We had a Upright Grand, and I didn't know he could make music like that.
Wow.
He was jaw-droppingly good. Like, I mean, I just was stunned.
I'm sorry, I never got to see it.
Oh my God! And he could play. He played organ. Is what his famous. He was really good at the organ. That was what he really liked. But he would, but he was also a pianist. And I'm talking like he could play Jerry Lee Lewis stuff. Matter of fact, he got screamed at. He got screamed at by Olivia Newton-John because they were on a set and her piano was what he played on, and he reached up with his foot and hit the keys on one end of the
oopsies.
And she lost her for shizzle, man.
They're
both dead now, so I can say that.
Yeah, well.
She lost her shit on him and freaking screamed at him when they came off set.
Wow.
So he says my only time I ever met Olivia Newton-John was she was chasing him with a stick.
Yeah. Anyway, so long story short, since it was already kind of long, that was my kickoff into like professional CAD, if you will. And I have literally been doing it ever since.
So I've seen your work. I mean, because you drew our stuff. Like
I was the only person up there for almost
basically
a decade.
Yeah.
Between 1997 and 2007. The only person running CAD in the utilities group. Yeah. And I was doing it all. I was doing fire alarm. I was doing electrical distribution. One lines. I even maintained some of the PGE one lines for the campus that we had ownership of. I don't know why, because now that I work for PGE, it's like...
Doesn't make any sense, does it?
Why would we do that?
I didn't make any sense to me then either.
I don't think PGE actually released the drawings. I just got my hands on a copy of the drawings and ran off with them.
Well played.
But I did the steam distribution, the condensate return, all the cold water distribution, and then I spent the last couple of years punching tubes for the boiler
for the
guys.
Big chillers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have some pretty big chillers, and you were punching tubes for that on the summertime.
I had an epiphany. We just did our lotto. Safety training, lockout, tag out.
Well, you should tell people who you work for now.
I work for Portland General Electric.
What?
Yeah.
Big timer.
So we did our annual plant training, safety training. We're going through the lockout, tag out stuff, and I was like, I remember crawling into the back end of that chiller with the bulkhead removed, but I had to crawl through the fan blades, and I never verified that the thing was even locked out.
Yeah. I'm sure it was, though.
I'm glad it didn't salad shooter me all over the backside of the building.
That would be unfortunate.
It would.
Well, then you wouldn't be here.
But I wouldn't be here.
Slices of you would be here.
I was just, I had that thought, and I was like, because I had no concept of that. That wasn't even a part of training back 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was
maybe
bizarre.
It was, but I never went through it.
Well, remember those guys would lock those things out and then take them all apart.
Right, so but I never verified that it was locked out.
No, I know.
I climbed in through the fans, in through the fan blades into the machine, and I never verified that it actually was locked out.
What blew me away was when Kurt said after you punched all the tubes, they'd never had that efficiency out of those things before because you are so ADD you punched every single tube.
That was that was my job.
Yeah.
And I even remember Terry telling me, he goes, I remember telling Terry, It's like every time I punch a tube, like every third tube comes out just mud.
Yeah.
He's like, that's because that was the tube that the last guy skipped.
Exactly. Because there's a lot of tubes. And so what we're talking about, kids, is a chiller uses these tubes to put the water through, and then they evaporate the gas out, so that it cools that water off when we use that chill water all over the hill.
Yep.
And these things are not small.
No,
they're
big.
Huge.
That main chiller floor, the main chiller plant, those machines, the tubes themselves are 40 feet long, an inch and a half in diameter, and there's 2 units, and each one had 1,550 tubes.
Yeah, see, I could see where people would skip that.
And I did every single one. That was a wet job.
I enjoyed work. I tell you what, Eric, I always enjoyed working with you, and I think that I know a lot of people got upset because you were young and things would happen and you'd pop up to go see what was going on. But I really did enjoy working with you. I thought you really knew your stuff, and I thought the end was not nearly as fun. Like, you never became a permanent employee, which sucked.
Right. I felt like they kind of jerked me around.
I felt like you kind of had a rug pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah. Yep.
But,
exactly. But that's the way it goes. And
that's the way it goes. And then you
stumbled
into a much better gig.
Yep, I'm much better for it now.
Yeah.
So.
And you've got a nice work environment.
Absolutely.
You've got a great employer. I know that, and you'd say PG is good to work for?
Absolutely.
They treat you well?
They treat me very well.
Pay you well?
The pay is very good.
Big time.
Benefits, like everywhere,
Yep.
they've been kind of rolling those back. They used to be like outstanding, but they're not what they used to be.
Yeah, but it's still
pretty good.
Paying the bills.
It's better than most places, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But I live comfortably. I don't have to scrounge for money anymore.
No.
Those days are behind me. I mean, at 45, they should be.
In theory.
It's not for a lot of people, but I feel like I'm in a really good spot.
So now tell people, besides CAD, I'm sure everybody knows what CAD is, but explain to them like what you do for PGE for CAD. I mean, without going into the classified shit, because there's a lot of stuff that PGE handles right now.
Right.
I'm gonna say this, as a precursor. With after 9/11, a lot of the utilities and switch gears and things like that have become pretty much proprietary or classified.
Classified, yeah. It's all that critical infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about any of that crap.
No, and I won't go into any of those details. I know where the borders are.
Yeah, but do tell the listeners, like, you've been to Trojan, you've seen the spent pool fuel at Trojan, you've seen the.
Yeah. I mean, that's
seen
part
some cool stuff.
That's part of my purview.
Plant. Yeah, tell people how you do what you do.
Basically, with CAD, it's computer aided drafting. Mm-hmm. It's lines, circles, and text.
But I mean, tell them what you do when you go out in the field and do your stuff.
Yeah. So when I go out in the field, I work with designers and engineers directly on projects. Every 2 years, a certain set of plants will go offline. They'll take them off. They shut them down. Then there's project time. We call that outage season. The hydros are usually running really, 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 really hard in the spring when water flow is really high, so then we take the thermal assets offline. And then, so these projects...
thermal assets are like oil and gas burning boilers and stuff?
Natural gas. That's actually... because we took...
you took the coal place.
Boardman coal plant offline back in...
I don't think people even knew we had one.
2020. We did. They actually just blew the thing up, tore it down. The stack came down and everything.
Oh, really?
There's a video on YouTube. It's pretty cool. I wanted to go out there and watch it in person, but it was really, really tightly controlled.
So for the listeners, there was in Boardman, Oregon, was a coal fire plant. It was the last PG&E coal fire plant that they had. They would bring in trainloads.
The last one in Oregon.
They would bring in trainloads of coal, flip the whole car upside down to empty the coal. That was pretty cool. I saw that. Burn it, take the coal ash, and do something with it. I don't know, maybe make sidewalks out of it or something. And
so 600 megawatt generating facility at peak. And we collected all the fly ash, and there was an actual cement plant on site where we would take the fly ash, clean it up, and then we had a contract with somebody, I don't know, that they would take all that fly ash away and use it to make concrete, to make sidewalks, like you said.
Nice.
That kind of thing, driveways.
Big timers.
So, yeah.
So then they have hydroelectric and then
gas. Wind,
and
natural gas.
Do you get to draw on those windmills too? Did you draw stuff for those guys too?
Yeah, so So I work in generation, which is the actual generating facilities. So what I work on is the electrical drawings, mostly the electrical drawings. I've done a little bit of mechanical and very limited civil. But I work on the electrical drawings for the systems inside the power plants to keep everything running.
So you get a lot of knowledge of how these things work besides just you're not just drawing boxes. You have to understand what is happening.
I have to understand, and I spot things that miss the designers and the engineers.
Really?
Like every now and then, I won't say all the time, but every now and then I'll spot something, be like, this doesn't work. So I kick it back to them, and they look it over, and they're like, oh, good catch. I get that, I don't know, fairly often.
So with all your experiences in this, and so you've done wind, coal, natural gas, hydroelectrics, because there's a lot of hydroelectric plants out there, right?
There are. Yeah,
dams.
The whole Clackamas River corridor, plus we've got the two, Pelton and Round Butte on the Deschutes River over on the east side.
Okay.
And Sullivan down on the Willamette River. That's actually, that's our oldest generating asset.
That's the one that's underneath in Oregon City?
Yeah, it's on the West Lynn side, and it's actually just past there's a paper mill there.
Yeah.
And 13 generators.
Have you toured these places in order to draw them?
Mm-hmm.
So you have been in all of these places?
Just about.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What is that like? What's it like to go underneath the falls?
Kind of cool.
Yeah, tell us about that.
That's so
cool.
Then they won't let us go out there anymore because the walkway and the pier and all that whole pier structure out there from the old paper mill and lumber mill or whatever it was out past Sullivan it's deteriorated to a point where they're afraid the whole thing's just going to collapse into the river. It's not our property.
So that's the old Smurfit mill on the Oregon City side.
No, it's on. No. Well, it's whatever it is on the West Lynn side.
Okay. So that pier that goes out.
All that whole thing that goes out toward the falls. But before they said you can't go out there anymore because we're afraid someone's going to fall through the floor into the river.
That would be bad.
That would be very bad. I was able to go all the way out and stand right at the edge of the waterfall and just look right down.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then turn and look and watch the water flowing away from me on the side, and it's just like this raging torrent. It was amazing.
It's the most powerful or biggest waterfalls other than Niagara, I think, in the United States, or some nonsense like that. I
don't know about that.
The Willamette Falls is bigger than people expect, and it was the first hydroelectric plant. The first hydroelectric plant west of the Mississippi. That I know because Parker told me that.
I got a peek at it at the falls as we were driving down in your little car this evening.
Oh yeah, big timer.
And it was raging. There's a lot of water going over those falls right now.
It's crazy
because of all that snow, low level snow we got, and then now it's melting because it's been 60 degrees for a week.
You're making that up. But so the hydroelectric plant is underneath the falls, or just like on the side?
No, it's on the side. So it's kind of like it's right adjacent to the locks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the old locks there. That structure kind of makes one side of the locks.
Okay,
if you will.
No kidding.
So the water from the river kind of comes down. It diverts down that west side on the West Lynn side. It fills up in this kind of area, and then it runs through the turbines and dumps out the bottom of the generator.
How
building.
Cool is that?
So,
and it's an old generator, I take it. It's not anything brand new.
Well, the first I think 3. I don't know the history of it all that well. Mm-hmm. All I know is it started in 1896.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago. It was the first high voltage transmission line west of the Mississippi River. It went 14 miles from Oregon City into downtown Portland to light the street lighting.
So we had a mutual friend we worked with, Parker. We talked about him.
Mm-hmm.
He collected glass insulators. That was one of his shticks.
Yes.
And he said that the insulators that they had at that generating station were some of the rarest insulators. He's pretty sure they're at the bottom of the Willamette, a lot of them.
Oh, probably.
Because they chucked them in there. But they were glass, obviously glass insulators, but they actually had a little oil, like a pool of oil they would fill up. They thought somehow that was needed. And he goes, it was done, but no one really realized it.
Right.
But he had been working in these fields all of his life, and he said, but those weird-looking insulators, he showed me what one looked like. He goes, they're incredibly expensive because they're worth a lot. And he knew a lot about that kind of stuff. So he was the one that told me about the west of the Mississippi and the most powerful falls. It all came from Parker.
Well, I'm not one to go trudge around in the bottom of the river looking for those things.
No, I mean, I don't know you're going to find a lot of stuff down there you don't think is there. So you visit all these places and then you take measurements and.
If I'm doing the legwork, I'm going out. I mean, there have been times where I'm kind of lead on a project,
okay.
Especially recently. My goal is to take a step up from just drafting and become more of a design.
Okay. Oh,
person
really?
To work and interface directly with the engineers. I do somewhat currently, but in the effort to get myself to that point, I've taken lead on projects and kind of played the design role.
No kidding.
Yeah, and one of them actually was out at Sullivan. That was the very first one I ever did on my own.
How cool is that?
Small little thing. And it was, I walked down and make my own red lines and then
come back and draw
it up in CAD.
Draw it all up in CAD. So the only thing I could tell you that I knew of CAD, because you were the one that taught me, between you and Crombie, you taught me how to use CAD, AutoCAD Lite.
LT, Lite.
Like Mike's version. Don't poke yourself in the eye with this. I could never start a drawing from scratch. I had no idea how they worked. Yeah, exactly. The light version. But yeah, if I had an existing drawing, I could easily add my magenta lines to them to show what I had pulled where and what I had done. All that stuff went away, by the way. All of it, which is sad. But that was it. That was my only experience with it. And I'd done that all the way up until probably, I think 2000 or something like that.
Something, yeah, I don't remember.
And then we would just do our layers, and then anything that was serious went to you.
Right. Well, and that was in the days before dynamic blocks and that kind of thing.
So what? Yeah, because what does that mean now?
I can create a symbol. Blocks are just symbols.
Okay.
It could be anything from a light switch to a lot of smoke detectors. When I was doing the floor plans of every floor of every building on that campus. Now I could create a smoke detector that has a symbol for a smoke detector that has intelligence behind it.
Okay.
So I can put in what the address of that point is, right? Instead of typing it up as just a dumb text tag next to a symbol, now that text tag can be embedded into the symbol.
Okay.
And I mean, it's been like
so
that.
So then you click on it and it has all its information that goes with it?
Right.
Oh, cool.
And now, so we're transitioning toward AutoCAD Electrical with SBS substation or SDS substation design suite, something or other like that. I've been in a weekly training. Finally got it to work because my computer would not take AutoCAD Electrical for some reason, and I'm like, you think of all the people that needed to have the actual software working, it would be me. No, I was the only one that didn't have it working, and so I just had to sit there and watch along on screen on Teams. So I'm finally able to do things now, and but then of course workload.
Oh yeah,
it's hard to shift gears and get into doing some of that stuff, but there's a whole lot more intelligence in behind that program, where you can now start creating entire frameworks, if you will, of electrical circuits.
That to me.
Mansplain it to you. Okay, so there's this thing called a computer.
That is a deep mansplaining. So
I don't mansplain a lot, so I'm not even sure where to start. Anyway,
excuse me.
So all the lines have intelligence to them. Every connection point has intelligence to it. All the devices have a lot of intelligence behind them. And when you build a circuit in the software, all that intelligence creates a database in the background.
Got it.
And so you can get to a point where you have, your wiring and your schematics, and if you change something in the wiring, it knows how to update that and show it accurately in the schematics.
So basically, it's like a I want to say a virtual drawing, but that's the wrong word. But it's like once it creates this database, then all you're doing is changing out the parts that are truly being changed out, and then all their properties get changed out with it.
Correct.
And then it's a living document is what I'm trying to say.
Basically, yes.
Instead of a flat.
It's pretty cool.
It sounds cool.
It's very complicated.
Sounds complicated.
It's got quite a learning curve, and especially for me now that I think, beginning of December is when I finally got the software. So, pretty steep learning curve.
Wow.
But it's cool.
So we had a product that we had. So one of my students two of my students started their own companies, and one of them in particular, Dakota Farmer, we had on the show. And I said, so how do you do your drawings? Do you send them out? Do you go to, because when I was a contractor weasel, I'd use DTS or whoever I needed to in town to do my drawings for me, and then they would throw their nice at 3 on it or whatever.
Right.
But or 4. But he goes, no, we use this other product, and it's basically like we were talking about. So there's a fire alarm product out there where you can pull in all these devices. So they keep a database of all the different devices. And then when you go to do his drawings, he'll actually draw them. He'll pull them in.
Right.
And so if he's doing a simplex system, then he'll have all these simplex. It wasn't simplex, but Silent Night. He'll have all these components. They're all maintained on a database. As he draws them in there, it stores it on a cloud. So even if he loses his local copy, they can recreate it for him. This sounds like a very similar product.
It is, and it's probably something that piggybacks on just your vanilla AutoCAD.
I think you're exactly right.
It's kind of the same thing. AutoCAD it's kind of a shell program, and it's a very powerful tool on its own. But then there's AutoCAD Electrical, which is kind of a framework that fits around. It'll use the AutoCAD shell, but then it has all these additional tools. This sounds very similar to that.
It was a product that we even had the guy who wrote the product and marketed it, and his son. We had him on here, and he showed us the idea behind it. It was brilliant, and a lot of people wound up using that product because it was dynamic. It was simple.
Yeah.
And so you come up and say, I'm going to get a subscription to your product, and okay, I want a notifier, and then they'll populate all that stuff for you, and the guy keeps up with it, and it does all the calculations. So if you drop NACs out there, NAC appliances out there, it'll calculate all that and tell you what your calcs are and do them all for you and get it in a submittal package so that it's done.
That's what's nice about this SBS software. It's designed more for substations, which is kind of outside of my purview since I'm in generation, but it works basically the same way. But I mean, panel schedules, it'll do load calcs.
That's crazy.
So you can load up your, as long as all of the data is put in there, it'll just calculate all your load values on all 3 phases and spits it out. Now, you don't have to have an engineer go through and math it out for you.
You can kind of see the future of where we're going in 20 years,
right?
What it's going to be.
Well, and this technology has been out there for a long time. I mean, I remember AutoCAD Electrical being a thing kind of as a rudimentary thing 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, but it's really now starting to come into the industry.
Got it.
I know some of our contractors have used it because before I had any real knowledge about how the AutoCAD Electrical framework worked, I'd get drawings from outside contractors that were done in AutoCAD Electrical, and then I'm viewing them in vanilla AutoCAD, and there's all this weird stuff, and I'm like, what is this? And I just delete it, and then all of the numbers on all of the things just went away. I'm like, oh, maybe that was a bad idea.
We talked about the because PGE is such an important utility, that the backups that are required, and your company has a great IT service that backs everything up on a real regular basis, and in a redundancy. I don't want to go into how redundant it is. But then Eric was sharing this with me because Clackamas Community College, during this last ICE event, and one of the reasons we haven't put out any podcasts in a while is not because I don't love you, but I've been sick. Rona, I already told you about that. Then we had the ice storm from hell, ice apocalypse 2024.
It wasn't as bad as 2021.
It wasn't as bad as 2021, but it sucked. Then we had to, put one of our dogs down.
You've had a rough year so far.
It's 1 star so far. But now we're in February.
Better month.
Better month, It's
the shortest of the months.
Thank God.
So what could go wrong?
No, I don't know. I don't know yet. But the whole the whole infrastructure system. The whole computer system at Clackamas got hacked into. And I don't know.
It was like some kind of a ransomware or something.
Yeah, I think it was a malware, ransomware type thing.
There was speculation that it was hackers out of Russia or
well,
China?
when they picked it up, and figured out what was going on, they tracked the IP back to Russia. But it doesn't mean that it was Russian hackers.
No,
It
I mean, with VPNs, it could have come from anywhere.
You could go through
Could have been
Greece,
from a guy just sitting out there in the parking lot.
It was probably somebody in the parking lot.
Who knows?
Bastards. So the IT people realized what was going on. They made all the right steps, called all the right people out to handle it, and they didn't talk about it much. But one of the students has an online blog, and he was able to get a lot of information that up quickly to tell us what was going on, because the university was trying to protect themselves, or the college was trying to protect themselves.
Right, you don't want to just announce that.
No, because it
looks bad.
It looks bad.
There's a whole PR element.
But I got to tell you, I was very impressed. They got Moodle back, which is and it was all complete. There was nothing taken. They got their payroll back. They got their student financial services back. They got their internet back. But part of their access control was on that, so it went away for a while. Mm-hmm. But they were able to restore it all in really short order.
Right.
I know for a fact that when that happened to JCI, they were not that lucky. Like when they got into JCI, it ate them.
Yeah.
And it affected their distribution. It affected their tech support. It affected everything. Right. And it's a huge hit. Now JCI is not a small company, so the hit that they took was major, and it affected all of us down the line as people who use their product.
Right.
So I'm excited to know that PGE, which obviously
Well, that was the thing. So I think you sent me a link to that blog article.
I sure did.
Whatever it was, and that was
hey, check this out.
On Monday afternoon, and I read it right after I logged off from work. I'm still working from home, and I love it. I don't really like going downtown for any reason.
You don't have to put your clock downtown.
I don't have to fight other drivers on the road just to get to work and back. But anyway, you had messaged that to me, and I read it right after I'd logged off, and it was basically saying that Clackamas Community College, their entire network was down, and they were going to be basically suspending classes until Wednesday. Yeah. Well, PGE has a partnership with Clackamas Community College for our training, and my training was that next day. And I'm like, oh, well, I never heard anything about this through work, so I messaged my boss, and I'm like, so this happened. Mm-hmm. Does that mean our training is suspended tomorrow because they're not going to be open till Wednesday? And he goes, oh, yeah, I read about that. I need to look into it. So about 30 minutes later, he messaged me back, and he said, oh, no, our network's fine. Everything's fine. Our training's still going. So when I walk in Tuesday morning, I walk into the Wilsonville Training Center, and, they've got those vertical screens, TV screens that have where all the classrooms are, like this class in this room, that class in that room. I walk in and it's black. I'm like,
it's a little post-it note.
That's not good.
Normal announcements here.
And I'm like, okay, well, where am I supposed to go? Find out, okay, I'm second floor, whatever, down on the end. So I go in there, and yeah, our network's working just fine. I just log in everything. So the PGE's network, I think, kind of piggybacks on the I'm not sure how it works, but with the Clackamas Community College, but it's a completely different set of servers and everything. But it all runs together through the same whatever. I don't know. We were unaffected.
Either way.
We were unaffected.
Yeah, you were.
And for good,
So most of my students that have taken specialized controls, when we do the lab, when we solder all those boards, we do that back in PGE's area. There's 2 classrooms back in the back. Well, there's actually 3 for them, and they have their labs. But they always have like their, like they'll have a big piece of some sort of electrical thing out there. Looks like Frankenstein.
There's a giant transformer that they have in there. It's actually the only one, I think, this side of the Mississippi River.
No kidding.
I think it's this side of the U.S. Yeah, wow. We have training. We have utilities from all across the entire U.S. that come in just specifically to use that piece of equipment.
I could see that because even in the back outside of the building, there's a whole area in the back that PGE uses to train with.
Yeah, we've got a training yard out there that's like for the linemen. They've got poles up with wires and
that's
all that
so
stuff.
Cool, dude.
Yeah.
You can, I got to tell you that when I lived in Colton on the end of Elwood and same thing in Oregon City, that it doesnst matter how crappy the weather is. Light's going to go out, power's going to go out.
Oh, yeah,
those guys,
so
those linemen out there, in the worst conditions, putting stuff back together again. And so while the power's out, even if their own family has no power, they're out there putting it all back together.
Stuff back up.
And it takes a while because it's a big infrastructure.
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't understand. They can't just, okay, the lights went out. We're just flip the switch and turn them back on for you. No, the lights went out for a very good reason.
Yeah, they do.
Something happened. You either have a tree branch that came down on a wire and pulled it down to the ground, or somebody hit a pole and sheared it off, and it's laying in the street, or whatever. It could be a million things. They can't just turn that back on. They actually have to start at the substation and check every wire and every connection down that entire circuit all the way out to the end and clear it. Find the tree branches, find the snapped off poles, clear the tree branches, get the wire strung back up, set a new pole, string up the new wire. And this is why it takes hours, sometimes days.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking those rural customers that are, 25 miles out a feeder line that goes just snakes its way up into the woods, that's a lot of wire you got to check.
There was a crew, when I lived in Colton, there was a crew that basically handled, it was the same crew. You saw them all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And like with Elwood, it would always have something fall on it because it was just nothing but, it was like someone took a lawnmower through the trees and then put a, honest to God. And, you would see the same kind of crews. I only lived out there for 2 years. That was enough for me. And, it was, we had to have a generator.
You were pretty far out there.
It was the end of the world.
You were out of the 1,000 feet, so anytime there was any mention of snow in the forecast, you got a lot.
And then there was nothing behind my back fence for 40 miles except Clear Lake. That's
all the way up to
there
Mount
was
Hood.
Bear, and there were like moose and things. There's no moose.
Big cats.
Elk.
Elk.
Cats. There were cats.
Oh yeah,
it's not fun.
I remember that one time I came out to your place.
That was when we were in Estacada.
Okay. Well, I was walking back out to my car, and it sounded like a woman screaming in the woods, and I ran back in your house. I'm like, someone's being attacked,
dude.
And you're like, dude, just calm down.
And that was a bobcat. That wasn't even a mountain lion.
It was a bobcat. Scary as hell, is what it was.
Yeah, I heard it, and it was like it made it when that thing went off, it put chills down my spine.
I had never heard anything like that, and I was walking in the dark because it was dark as hell out there. From your house out to my car, which was like a quarter-mile walk through the woods and then the mud. And I'm like almost back to my car, and I literally, it sounded like someone was dragging a woman into the woods, and she was screaming at the top of her lungs.
It was scary bad.
I was like, that does not sound
We
good.
were down in that valley on a set of horses when we had those 2 quarter horses, Scion Sneakers, and I had Otis, the German Shepherd, before Diesel here.
Diesel's predecessor.
And the Diesel's our dog that's laying at my feet here. So Otis, so we were just down in this valley, which was a valley that was kind of a privately owned area. We were riding our horses down there, and both horses stopped. I mean, stopped, just like right now.
Yep.
And Otis whimpered, as a German Shepherd's kind of apt to do, and backed up, and turned around and walked away, and then
you better follow him.
And then went back up to where we were at, and that's the indication from a German Shepherd that something is wrong.
You need to turn around and follow the dog.
And Jackie, who's up on a much taller horse, or a little bit shorter horse than me, but I was up on Sneakers at the time. She goes, "What is that? What does that smell?"
Some big horses.
We did, and both horses stopped and put their ears up, and I went, "Oh well, there's that's an indication something's there." She goes, "What's that smell?" And so she's shorter than me and lower, and so I honestly leaned off of Sneakers, and I could pick it up, and I said that's a cat.
That's a cat.
That's a cat. That's a male cat.
Time to go.
And so what had happened was a male cougar had walked in front of the path where we were at, and I don't know how long, if it had been 30 seconds or 30 minutes, I have no idea. But the smell of a male cat,
it was probably not that long ago.
And the fact that we could smell it meant that he wanted us to smell it, because cats don't make mistakes. They just don't in the woods like that. And we were thinking we should turn around. The horses were already ahead of us. Mm-hmm. The horses were like, "Yeah, you can stay and smell the cat all you want." But that's what they got, and I don't think they heard it as much as they smelled it. Oh my God! But Otis was like, "Yeah, you got. Can we go now?
Time to run!
Time to run!" He was like 50 feet down the road. He'd come back because the shepherds will kind of go.
He'd come back and be like, "Why aren't you running yet?
You're not going fast enough." Oh my God, man. But yeah, it's I I appreciate what PG&E does. Like I really, really do. We made it through. We have underground feeders in the neighborhood I live in, but we made it through all the ice storms without any loss of power. And then right after all that stuff ended, some knucklehead came down the road, smacked into the pole.
Oh man!
Smacked into the pole right in front of us and knocked it over. Which did feed us, and that was, and the PG had to come out that day and fix it. So we literally had about 6 hours of loss of power time, and where we're at, and it wasn't because of the ice. Due to the weather. It was because of a Chevy truck that smashed into a pole. I don't think he was drunk or anything. He just
maybe fell asleep.
An error.
Going
it was
too fast.
2:30 in the morning. So
going too fast in those corners. There's some sharp corners in there.
Holcomb is not a fun road.
No.
Like a beaver got hit there the other day.
A beaver?
A beaver came out of Holcomb Creek and got hit. I didn't know we had beavers in Holcomb Creek.
Well, I mean,
we thought it was just a big cat thing. My wife was...
That's the fattest possum I've ever seen.
Look at the tail on that thing. But yeah, it's anyway. I just appreciate PG&E and all you've done. So you've seen, but you've got to go. Can you talk about Trojan? Is that classified or confidential?
I can talk about it. I mean,
what was it like to go to the old Trojan plant and see stuff up there?
It's kind of surreal. So just walking onto the campus, even though I have clearance to walk onto the campus, and it's very tightly controlled.
You think?
I'm still escorted.
I'd escort you. You scare me.
Well, I'm escorted by a guy with an AR-15.
Well, I wouldn't use a weapon.
He doesn't point it at me. I don't give him reason to. I don't want to. I'm just not going to do that. Yeah. But I work on documents that have to do with some very sensitive stuff out there, and the computer that I work on is completely air gapped. So I won't go through the process of anything, because I probably can't say it, but all I know is that the very first time I went out there and I had everything running and I've got the drawing up on the screen, they've got the door locked behind me with the guy with the AR-15 standing there right at the door.
Sure.
And he says, oh, by the way, actually the manager that I work with out there, he says, by the way, if that screen is turned on and that door opens unexpectedly, duck under the table and cover your ears because it's going to get really loud.
No kidding.
Really fast. And I don't know if he was joking or there was probably an element of truth to that. I don't want to find out.
I tell you what, I was on, I think I told you this story. I've told it to a lot of students before. In '86, I was on a nuclear-powered cruiser, the Truxton, and I'm getting my welcome aboard tour, and I'm in front of Combat Systems, which is also where you enter the missile house.
Right.
And there's this little tiny dark alleyway or corridor, and it had a little sign, little piece of rope on it, and a little sign that said deadly force authorized. Now I came off of an amphib.
Right.
So, it was an amphibious ship that carried Marines, and that's what we did. We just carried Marines, and we dropped them off, and they broke things and shot people, and then we picked them up again. And it wasn't a really super high security kind of a boat. And so this is my first experience on a guided missile cruiser, and I don't know anything about this. So I look in the passageway, just to look in the passageway, not to go in the passageway, because it's obviously that's the plane there.
Right.
So I just happened to look at the guy back there, and he's wearing his dungarees. He's got a .45, and I kind of look towards the thing, and he
barely put an eyeball around the corner.
He leans forward and he puts his right hand on his. We carried .45s at the time.
Yeah.
And then I lean back, and then he sits back. He takes his hands off of
so
his
it's like the cartoon, like.
And I said, yeah, exactly. And I went like it's like a teeter-totter. And I went, and he leans forward. And then he sits back down. He does it like 3 times. And the guy who's escorting me, and I said, hey, man, check this out. And I mean, I'm literally like a foot and a half away from this thing. I said, watch this.
You peek around the corner, and
the 4th time, the guy who's taking me around, he goes, look.
Stop it.
He goes, he really will shoot you. And I said, oh, I have no doubt. This is not my first, I am in the...
Like, don't worry, I'm not going to take it that far.
I am in the military. I do know that we kill people here. So I said I was just trying to have fun with him, and he goes, "This isn't funny." I said, "Okay, everybody, chill."
It was funny to me.
I get it. I'm a second class. I know what I'm doing. So a couple of weeks later, I meet this guy because we're on the same duty section, and he was on a PRP team which handles that. And he says he was an ET, and he goes, electronics technician. He goes, I said, "Oh man, you were the guy I was on watch." He goes, "We don't know if we're going to get challenged or not." And he says, "So we have to act accordingly." And he goes, "Well, when you looked in the passageway, we assumed it's a threat."
You're not supposed to look in the passageway.
And I said, "But I'm just looking at the passageways. I don't care." And I said, "So you would actually have to do." He goes, the longer you're on this boat, the more you see how serious we take this. You'll get it. And he was not kidding.
And that was because probably down into some nuclear area. That
it goes. It's in the missile house on the Truxton.
Yeah.
Could carry.
Right.
As what we call ASROCs, which are nuclear depth charges, or Y-birds, which are SM-1 or SM-2 maybe, surface to air birds with nuclear tips.
Yep.
So we were authorized in that time to carry them. So
but you weren't authorized to look at them.
So anytime a gunner's mate went in there, and this is a big chunk of the boat. When you first get on a ship, you don't know where the hell you're at. It takes you forever to figure out what's going on. And then the smaller the boat, the quicker you can figure out. Well, the Truxton was not a small boat. So once you figure it out, you're like, okay, well, this is where the reactors are, because it's like this area. It says, don't stand here, you get irradiated. And then this is where we carry the missiles, and this is where I sleep, which means all the missiles are pointed at my head. Well, that's a bummer. Well, then they decertified those particular classes, I think it was called Mark 76 missile fire control system. They said, okay, we're not going to carry nuke birds on here. So they declassified it. They decertified it for nukes, which was fine. And they were doing that throughout the Navy because these ships were going to be decommissioned anyway. And so when they did that, then they did away with the 2-man rule, because you could not go in the missile house without having another person there, period.
Right.
And so that guard is standing there at that door to allow 2 people to enter the missile house, 2 GMMs to go in there and do what their work is. And they could just go in there and be painting. Who the hell knows? But they always have to be within sight of it. There's always rules because you have nuke stuff in there. And then when they decertified it, they took them. I guess they took the weapons off. You never know if you have them on or off. That's just not something you're ever told. And so, but all of a sudden, that all went away. And then I got a tour of it. And so the GMs are like, "Oh man, come on, I'll show you what we could never show anybody before."
Right.
But now you can see it.
Now
and
you can.
It was really, really impressive. Like, I got in there and I got to see. Matter of fact, I saw that more. I never saw the reactor. There was 2 reactors. I never saw either reactor. I could see the porthole that you could, look through the leaded glass and you might be able to see what's in there.
Right.
But you couldn't. I didn't have a TLD, so I couldn't even get within like 20 feet of that.
No.
And other than that, it just looked like any other engine room. It's just hot and it stinks, and people look at you funny. So I'm like, I'm gonna go upstairs where it's cool. But yeah, it was really, really cool. And the guy was like, "Oh yeah, this is how we do it." And the missile transfers between rings and put it on the thing, and then they put it back down again. I was like, "Damn!"
Wow.
And I said, "This would have been cool to see with the nukes." And he goes, "No." He goes, "No." He goes, "It was a real pain in the ass." And I was like, I get it. So, and it's the same thing here. There's stuff people don't realize just how much goes into a plant and what happens, at the decommissioning of one and all of this stuff. And if you really want to know about all that stuff, I'll say one word: Fukushima. So you can look it all up you want. You can see all the details on what happens.
That was the start of several very bad days.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You and I were, because we were used to hang out every Thursday for.
Yeah, I'd go over to your place and
15 years?
We'd hang out and drink beer and
play
on the radios. And then when Fukushima went off, and I think it was about 2 weeks after. And
we were out measuring radiation.
There was radioactive iodine falling in our rain. Yeah. And
no one knew.
Well,
but we
measured it.
It was pretty wild because remember we could go out and...
Yeah, you took your Geiger counter and your downspouts were freaking hot.
We could measure... We could get some ionizing radiation.
And I don't mean like
concentrations.
I just mean that thing was like...
It was so strange, man. Because we
thought...
That's
not supposed to be doing that.
And when that thing blew, I remember you and I were looking at it, and I went, I believe that would be what they call a...
hydrogen explosion.
Meltdown. Yeah, when the zircon tubes are burning.
That initial explosion that took the roof off, that was basically a 3-mile island.
Yeah.
And then it got worse than that.
And then things got bad.
Yes.
But one of the things that happened there that people don't realize is that they had a 25-foot seawall, and all their generators for the backup power that handled the circ pumps were below sea level, which was a design flaw
Yep.
that one of the engineers had really quit GE for that reason.
Yep.
Everything was right. The tsunami hit, but what they didn't count on was the seawall itself, the whole ground dropping 9 feet.
Oh yeah.
And so the ground went down 9 feet. The tsunami came over the top. End of game.
It was the same reason. Like in a lot of those coastal towns, they had a 30-foot high seawall, and they had a 30-foot tsunami that comes in, but they didn't account for the fact that the ground dropped 9 feet.
Yeah.
So now your 30-foot seawall is only 24 feet or 23 feet, whatever, above sea level now, and so now it's topping by.
It's a bad day.
6 feet.
I was blown away by that. Every time I get down to the coast and I see those warning signs, I honestly think, you know how fast that happened. It's just like when it hit in Phuket. I've been in Phuket. The one it hit in Thailand. I've been in Phuket. I've been there. I remember when it hit. I went. I was in that hotel lobby before I got into serious trouble. Right there, right where the video shows the.
Oh yeah, that was a tsunami. I thought it was a storm surge.
No, it was a tsunami. Yeah, there was another tsunami in the IO, and it came through and it took out Phuket, Thailand. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, this is a place I've actually been to. I've been to Thailand 3 times, so it's like, but only Phuket once.
Yeah,
that's enough, honestly. But he's like, I'm like, it gives you a keen appreciation for earthquakes and earthquake preparedness, which welcome to the Northwest.
Yeah, we're sitting on a
time bomb of awesome apps. And remember when we climbed, like Eric and I climbed together with a bunch of guys from OHSU onto Mount St. Helens.
Yeah, that was a day.
Oh, that's the longest day.
Yeah.
And
I reverse swan dive down that cliffside.
Yeah, Eric tried to climb down the mountain on his rib cage. That's not good. We were, but we went all the way to the top and looked over the edge, and you could see, how small you really are when you look over the edge of the caldera and look in, and you could hear you could hear glass breaking.
It sounded like glass breaking, but we had a small earthquake while we were going up the side of the mountain in the morning, and I heard it. I didn't feel it. I heard it. It sounded like a sonic boom that came from under my feet.
That, and I don't think I heard it because I was just probably panting.
Boom! Under the ground.
That was crazy.
And I was like, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah. It was whole day was
small. I mean, it was like a 1 point something small earthquake, but I heard it.
But I remember that by the time, so young Eric, that's what we called him at the time, was behind the rest of our party for a variety of reasons, and fell. And so,
well, I made it to the summit with you guys.
Yeah. But on the way back down,
I was like, I'm going to hang out a little bit. You guys go ahead and go back down. Yeah, and I was walking down. I was just below the bouldering part and got kind of into
this big lava rocks.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's seeing the trail going up is pretty easy, and it's well marked. But for some reason, coming back down, it's not quite as easy to follow.
And remember, this was years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't. This was in 2006.
Yeah, thanks for remembering that.
I'm walking behind this couple and I'm kind of, it's soft. So I'm stepping where they're stepping.
Yeah, we're gators, by the way.
And I was like, all of a sudden they get to a point, they're like, we could see the trail down below, down the slope. And they just were like, oh, we're going to go down to the trail. And they just barreled right on straight down. I'm like, I don't have the energy for that. So I'm going to continue on this track, going down at an angle, and it'll gradually intersect with the trail down below. I got 2 steps, and my feet just sank into the dirt, went out from underneath me. I went down on my left side, rolled over onto my stomach and tried to grab onto this boulder that was about the size of my torso, and I just felt my entire body rolling backwards off the side of the cliff with this boulder in my hands as now I'm in free fall. I'm like, oh shit. And for me, when things get crazy like that, time slows down.
Yeah, isn't that? It's funny how time goes immediately slow.
Don't know why.
The process of being hurt.
It's so weird. Yeah. But I remember halfway through, I'm holding onto this boulder in my arms, free falling backwards, and I remember thinking,
free falling.
When I eventually hit the ground back there somewhere, this boulder's going to crush me. It's going to hit my head. So I pushed it with my left arm, which rotated me toward the left, and I ended up landing on my scapula, cracked it, blew out 3 ribs in the front, somehow spun around and was facing back down with one leg behind me, one leg in front of me. And I'm like, I'm still alive.
I think you fell. The guys who
they said it was about 10 to 15 feet.
It was about 15 feet is what the guy told me. So Eric and I were both ham radio operators. I get this call on my radio.
Yeah.
And, you know, hey, K70SM, this is W70NK. Well, no,
it wasn't even
this
that.
is Eric. You're Eric's friend, right?
Right. So I had the radio in my pocket, and it stayed on me. And I remember just pulling it out when I could actually speak, because, you know, knocked the breath out of me. Took me a couple minutes. And this guy came scrambling up to me, checking me. You okay? Are you okay? I'm like, I think so. So I handed him the radio. I just said, push that button and call for Mike.
Yeah, call for Mike. Yeah. And I hear this. Is there a Mike there? Is there Eric's friend Mike there? K something? And I went, yeah. This is K70SM. And he goes, yeah, your friend just fell. And I was like, oh no. So I gave the water I had left to Terry's friend. Thanks. Doug, or Don. And I go back up.
Yeah.
And to me, and they're carrying you, kind of.
I mean, I was walking.
You were kind of walking.
But they had,
that
up over the shoulder and helping me down the hill.
And we worked, you and I worked with one of those guys, or I think 2 of those guys, all the way down that mountain.
Yep.
Yeah, because we talked to Life Flight. We called out. I got a hold of a guy in Troutdale on my 2-meter.
Right.
He called 911, paramedics.
And they sent a team up.
Yep.
And they were in the parking lot, and they were like, do you need a helicopter? I'm like, no, I'm walking. I'm conscious. I don't need a helicopter.
Plus, we don't need the bill.
Plus, I don't want to pay for that. Yeah. So then he's like, well, we can send a group up, and they can put you on a stretcher and carry you out. And I'm like, no, I'm walking. And again, I don't want to pay for that. I didn't have insurance.
I remember.
Working for the hospital.
Working because you're working as a temporary employee, a student
at the hospital for 10 years, and I never had insurance.
No insurance.
So, weird. Anyway.
Weird's a good way to put that.
4 hours we walked
Bat squeeze is another way to say that. But
squeeze.
Anyway,
4 hours. You helped me walk off that mountain.
We
I've
walked
never been
off
back
that
since.
mountain.
I don't like that.
We walked off that mountain, and then your friend came up and met us, and so together we were working. And then on the way there, the guy goes, "Hey," the guy calls up on the radio. He's in the parking lot. He's a ham radio.
Yeah.
He goes, "Hey, we've lost an Indian." I'll never forget this.
Oh yeah, one of the guys that was climbing that day.
Yeah, but the guy who was operating an ambulance
we're not talking like Native Americans.
No, he says there's an
India.
Indian there, and I went, what?
Yeah.
Like what? I mean, we were even somewhat politically correct in 2006 or whatever.
We were
like,
you can't
what? He goes, no, from India. There's a guy from India lost. Don't leave the trailhead, or don't leave the trail.
Yeah.
And we're right at the tree line. We're already past the tree line, so we're almost back to the parking lot. And I went,
and he had followed that rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Escarpment down too far off the trail.
Too far off the trail because it wasn't marked.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, sure. If I see an Indian, I will let you know we're laughing about it because at this point, the endorphins are really hitting you pretty good.
Yeah.
So we get about another 50 yards.
It was like immediate.
And sure as shit, I hear this.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you very nice. And I was like, what the hell is that? I said, that's got to be the guy. And the guy goes, don't leave the trail. Don't leave the trail. And I'm like, screw you. So I walk right, honest to God, I must have walked 100. And I used to hunt.
Feet.
So I walked 100 yards, not even that, 150 feet, in through a thicket. And there was this big pile of trees. I never seen that. It was like a big goddamn hedgerow. And this arm came out of it. And I went, hey, you must be the lost Indian.
You must be the missing Indian guy.
And he goes, oh, thank God. And I pull him up and he's like, thank you. And I was like, sure. I said, all we did was shake hands, brother. But he goes, no, I heard you. And so, so I said, well, great. And he literally ran up and damn near carried you the rest of the way because we were like exhausted.
Yeah.
Jen and I were like, we need to just die now. And we felt like shit. And you were the one that got hurt. And when we got to the parking lot after that whole thing, right?
Yep.
I think I drank 1.5 gallons of water. I don't think I had been so thirsty in my life, man.
Yeah.
And we went into Cougar and bought like a bag of everything they had to eat because we were so bad. And then you went home and you went to the hospital and got treated.
I went to urgent care the next morning, and they were like, "Yeah, you kind of messed yourself up a little bit."
Yeah, dude, that was a hell of a day.
What happens when you do a reverse swan dive on a volcano and try and shut?
But it was a bonding experience for us because we really have been. I mean, you were the best man at my wedding. I was. That's right.
I
mean, that's how tight we've become. We've camped out and seen badgers out in the middle of Central Oregon, and
we've heard weird animal noises. Like I can't even identify that out there.
We used to sit out there and watch satellites go over. Watch those iridium satoids go overhead, and never did see a UFO.
Sit there drinking a pile of beers, watching the sunset.
When I was a drinker, man, we took drinking to new heights.
I went back through all my old photos and I saw the pile of beer bottles. Because we were drinking, cans weren't really a big thing for the microbrews. No. They were all in glass bottles, and there's like 30 or 40 bottles, and I'm like, we were only out there for 2 days.
We had a lot. We packed up, went to go camping out there one time, and I remember my ex looking in the truck going, "Is there like a tent in there?" And I said, "Yeah, there's ham radios, beer, and a dog." Yeah, I think that was what was in the truck, and then we successfully went out and drank it. So yeah, we did. I mean, we definitely.
Why eat when you can drink your calories?
Why? Yeah, and kids, this is why Mike's a alcoholic.
Yeah,
and doesn't drink alcohol anymore.
If I wasn't young and stupid, I would have, done things different.
It is what it is. But I love my life. We had an excellent time. We still have. And
we still do, and we don't need the alcohol.
No.
I never really did.
I don't need it at all. But now it's just Mio and soda water. But whatever. Yeah. That's as hard as it gets for me. So anyway, I appreciate you coming.
Thank you for the invite. And we've been talking about this for a while, and I've been interested in coming on here and just
And you've listened to the podcast. I
have listened to the podcast. Quite a few, not all of them.
What?
I'm
Get out.
Still working on it.
God damn it. I trusted you. No,
Gage is giving me eyeballs through the window too.
I thought it would be good to have you. I mean, because you're a different trade, it's still something that is a technical trade. And I know you went to college, and I'm certainly not an anti-college person, but I know that it's something that I care about as a trades.
Right.
And you have been gainfully employed, doing AutoCAD and doing drawing, and now designing to some degree. And you know your ass when it comes to electrical stuff. You knew your ass when it came to fire stuff. You were an excellent fire monkey.
I learned everything I know about fire from you, and I learned everything I know about electricity from Paul.
I thought I learned everything from you.
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, Paul. Our friend Paul, who's no longer with us. But yeah, Paul was a good instructor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was. So I would say that between ham radio, which we got into pretty much together, radios, the electrical, CAD, fire alarm.
It's kind of like the perfect niche.
It really has been. Yeah. So. And then when we did drinking, I got that shit down, brother. I was good at that.
Yeah.
I was really good at that.
Until you weren't, and then it
wasn't right off the bat.
No.
Yeah. You were like, as soon as the genie came out of the bottle, you're like, ooh, this was probably wrong. I'm like, screw you, dude. It's on now. But, the thing about my alcoholism and my issues, even with the kids. You were there with Ashley.
I was there with Ashley.
You were there with Leanne.
I was there with Leanne.
The every major snap moment in my life, you have been there, and I'm here with you for a couple of reasons. You got your own personal stuff going on.
We all have our own periodic dramas and whatnot, and.
We all hit the wall at some point.
I feel privileged to have you in my life because
timer.
You're like my sounding board for all this stuff.
We don't see each other physically as much as we do.
We don't.
We do the app because we have the Signal app, so we talk on that all the time. We talk on that I think every day at least.
Close.
Yeah.
So we're at least chatting back.
We're at least chatting and seeing each other. And this is probably the first time I've seen you in, I don't know,
2 years. Yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, you had a bigger beard last time. I don't know what what is this?
I've tamed it way down. I keep it kind of short now.
Do the goatee thing, dude.
I've done that a couple times. Just, I don't know. It looks weird on my face.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure all this looks weird on my face. My face just looks weird in general.
No. God, thanks for coming in. You gonna? Will you come back?
Yeah, anytime.
Let me know. Now we've given the audience some of my more intimate deals.
This is the thing is you and I have this habit of cracking each other wide open.
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually we're good at that.
Yeah.
So. Well, as always, man, I really appreciate you coming in here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Thanks for listening to the Half Watt Podcast. We always want to hear from you, and we encourage you to email us at halfwattpod@gmail.com with questions or even your own stories. Funny, crazy, or praiseworthy, we want to hear it all. You can follow us on Instagram at halfwattpod to stay up to date on our feed. And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And share us with a friend, the best way to help us grow. The Half Watt Podcast is a production of Now Hear This Studios.